Hello, welcome to Young, Gifted, and Fat Talk Fat Sessions, where we talk about everything fat and size. My name is Dr. Sharrell D. Luckett at SD Luckett, and I'm sitting here with two lovely ladies. Will y'all please introduce yourselves?
I'll start. My name is Tanya Christian at Tanya Christian, and I am an editor and a writer.
Hi, I'm CeCe Olisa at CeCe Olisa. I'm co-founder of theCURVYcon.
Yay, thank y'all. So in my work and everything, I have a book called Young, Gifted, and Fat. My journey with weight, I guess, is that I lost 100 pounds about 10 years ago. And so since then I've been talking about that, and so I'm so happy to have you guys in conversation today. So I was in a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about size and dating, and there was a woman who was not black, and she was talking about how she gets a lot of attention. The most attention she gets from men are actually from black men. And that was not my experience, actually, as a bigger black woman. I did not get any attention from black men, but I know that there's this stereotype out there about black men loving curves, loving very large women, fat women, voluptuous women, and that just wasn't my experience. And I'm just curious what your experience has been with that and dating.
No, because I was gonna say, I feel like there's like, curvy is one thing, okay. And then, because you're saying that she was curvy, or you're just saying she was bigger?
No, thank you for asking. No, she was on the larger plus size. I believe she's size 28. Lovely woman, yeah, size 28. And so she was just saying when she dates, it's always black men. Black men love her size, and that was just so opposite from what I've experienced.
Well, I'll say this with dating, because I love talking about love and dating. And this might be a stereotype, but this is from what I've seen. With black men, I've noticed like black women have to be twice as good. So they might date a white woman who, you know, might not have a degree, might not really have a stable job, and that's really okay. But if that was us, it wouldn't be happening. And I feel like it's probably the same thing with size. So like maybe it's, you don't feel as though you were looked at when you were larger, but for a white woman, it doesn't matter. I feel like they definitely throw things to the side. Things that they would judge us for, they don't judge them for.
I think that it's tough with stereotypes. It definitely is tough because nobody wants to like blanket anybody into a box. Like we want to give everyone permission to be individuals. But I think that in my early work, like with my blog, when I first started talking about dating stuff, I was definitely very aware that like, I remember I was reading like Overheard in New York, which was like, remember when they would just like be clips, and there was this, and I wish, back then there was no screenshotting, right? But I read Overheard in New York where the guy was like, hey, he asked his homeboy like, are you attracted to Oprah? And he was like, why are you asking me that? And he was like, well, you like black girls and you like fat girls, so are you attracted to Oprah? And he was like, oh, no, like the fat girls have to be white. Like he said it. And like somebody overheard it like, oh, that's so interesting, right? Okay. So the thing that I feel is interesting is like, especially in America, like there is social currency. Now you're the professor, so I'm gonna try to be smart, but like you tell me if I'm getting it right. Social currency is a thing. And in America, like we're all kind of like funneled into this idea of whiteness, and it's actually an idea of whiteness that none of us can attain, right? Yeah. There's an article that I read like, not even white people. Yeah. So if you really break it down, what we're all kind of funneled towards is like a white man who is over 6 foot, super attractive, super athletic, like we're all funneled in to want to be that, and then we're variants of it, right? So maybe when it comes to social currency, if a woman is fat, maybe that's -10, but let her be white, +5. So maybe they balance it out that way. We all do it. Like, I'm sorry, we all do it. There are ways that like a fine dude could get away with some things that an ugly dude can't get away with, right? And not to say that race makes you ugly or, you know, weight makes you ugly or whatever, but it's like, when it comes to social currency, we all calibrate people. And so sometimes when it comes to weight, maybe something like whiteness can like balance it out for people. And I'm always the bad guy for saying this stuff, but I'm just like, let's just keep it like real. Like women, we do it too. Like, oh, well, he's super rich, but he's 85, but he got that money. So, you know what I mean? Like we make allowances.
I can never make allowances like that, and I'm trying to get there. You said I will. I tried, but it don't work. It hadn't worked yet. how do we as women learn what to like and what not to like about our bodies? How do we learn that? I mean, I know it's in the home too, but how do we learn that? Is it not connected to the man? For me, it was connected to the man.
It's always, the male gaze is a thing. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah, I agree. And I always give this example of, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. There was like the old Aunt Viv and the new Aunt Viv. Yeah. See, but my dad loves brown-skinned women, right? So I hear a lot of times brown-skinned women say, maybe they don't feel attractive because they're brown-skinned, which is so odd to me because I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with complexion, but also my dad loved brown-skinned women. So he celebrated brown skin. So I never had that issue because I always felt attractive because my dad, that was attractive to my dad. So I do feel as though when you talk about a man, it probably, it does have something to do with that. Yeah.
And I think even when I was like, first of all, totally agree. When I tell you, my parents were like, "Oh, this Hershey chocolate girl," but like, I had an ex try to tell me I wasn't dark skinned. Like we almost it was over. Like I was like, "Excuse me, like I'm dark skinned. Like don't play with me. Like that is who I am, right?" So wanting to be that, it wasn't until I was around. Like I grew up around a lot of white people. It wasn't until I had black friends that I was like, "Oh, you guys don't want to tan?" Like I'm like lathering the oil. Like I want to be darker. So like with anything, it's like what you grow up with, right? Like my parents were doing double time. They would like, we got this tall, plus size, dark skinned girl. She will know she's beautiful. Like she's not leaving this house not knowing it. What happens outside, right? So even with reading some of your work, I felt like there were so many absolutes that I was hearing about like, fat girls aren't protected in this way, or fat girls aren't. And my questions were more around like, okay, it sounded like maybe you were in an ecosystem where that body type was not protected and celebrated, but I can say that there are things that I went through that I probably would have gone through regardless. And there are things that I went through because of my own mindset about my size, right? So I think like sometimes sifting out like where, not the blame lies, but the root of the issue. I think sometimes it's easy to pass things off on our weight or our skin color or how we look. And then sometimes you'll find out after the fact, they're like, no, I was feeling you. Like I was attracted to you, but you were just miserable. Like,
That's what I hear a lot. Folks will say, well, Sharrell, you were cute as a fat girl. And I'm like, well, why wasn't nobody talking to me? Well, it's because you were sad all the time. And I was like, I was sad all the time because I was fat and nobody was talking to me. And so figuring out where it was coming from. But right. And I'm glad you brought in the color and the colorism and the intersectionality, because I experienced the same thing growing up. Boys used to call me big black fat girl, and it's funny because when it got to the black, I would be like, yeah, that's true. You know what I mean? But they were calling me fat black girl. But it wasn't until later that I realized the black was supposed to be a bad thing. So a lot of times in my work, people will bring up the colorism and ask me, well, how is your skin tone, your color affecting it? And I'm like, it doesn't. And I'm thankful for it because, God forbid, there are women growing up that are taught, not only is your fatness not appropriate, but your dark skin is also not appropriate. And having those layers is terrible. You know what I mean? And so, just talking about it.
Your book is called what?
Young, Gifted, and Fat. Right. Which signals. Right. No, thank you. And then when people think about it, I'm like, yes, you automatically put young, gifted, and black in it, because people often say young, gifted, and black and all that good stuff. So Tanya, you're like a purveyor of culture. What trends or trends in size in media and culture have you noticed, like on social media?
Yeah, I mean, well, to CeCe's point, social media is big, and I feel like people always feel like they can weigh in on things on social media because it's kind of behind a veil. But what I realize is that a lot of people, and they attribute it to the Kardashians. I don't know that it's necessarily a Kardashian thing. I think it's more people are on social media now. And so you're seeing more body types, and you're seeing more body types celebrated, because I think before we had TV to look at, or we had the runway to look at, we had the magazines to look at, and all sizes weren't represented there. But now on social media, first of all, people can be their own celebrity as long as they have an account and they have followers. And so you can buy them too, right? Exactly. So I think that people are able to see more shapes and sizes celebrated. And I noticed that I feel like a lot of men are into that curvy girl, and a lot of times that means like breast implants and butt implants is what I'm talking about. And then like you said, like a cinched waist. For whatever reason, that's the look that people are going for. And I do think on both ends, people feel like, well, that's not me. You know, it's funny, when they were talking about Tristan Thompson and that whole, so when he cheated the first time, right? And it's like, well, everyone kind of looks the same though. You know what I mean? Like everyone looks like they've had work done to their face. They look like their boobs are done and their butt is done and then they got the cinched waist and then, like they're overdone with the makeup. Like that's, for whatever reason, that is the look these days. And so that's what I feel like is trending. But then it becomes, well, that's like a Build-A-Body. And most people don't have Build-A-Bodies unless you paid for that Build-A-Body. So then I do wonder what that then does to women who are natural, who are going to the plastic surgeon like, this is how I want to look. Or Dr. Miami, who's very popular these days because he does them on social media. Like he will do procedures on social media.
You said to look like the filter?
Well, some people it's to look like the filter, but then other people it's to look like the people that they see on social media. And I mean, you look, walking around here, even in Harlem, you're like, girl, why did you do that?
So I'm curious because I will admit I'm trying to master like angles for what I would look. You said what?
Yes, angles. Go ahead.
I'm trying to master angles, and I hope I'm not going down that road of like the cinch whatever. But I do look at like how do I make myself look more appealing, I guess, with that,
Let me be very clear, because I love a cinch waist.
Yeah.
I don't do anything wrong.
And you know how you go up? Somebody taught me that. But it's terrible because I don't know if it slenderizes the body. Do y'all know?
But isn't it like, what? Isn't the point of all this to ask why? Like, yes, all of these things, like everybody gets that. Everybody's like, I think I spent years telling people to shoot me from above. And now I like actually ask people to shoot me from below just because I'm like, why did I do that? Like sometimes you just have to ask yourself why. And so it's like going back to your point about the male gaze and this and that, like if we're just conditioned to want, if slender is always better, if cinched waist is always, if it's just better, just off rip, but like at what cost or,
Well,
so I don't think it's wrong. It's just like what's the intention?
Well, when you start to feel like you're less than because you don't have that, I feel like that's where the problem comes in. Or I watch a lot of Botch. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Botch. And like I realized the formula. The formula is always like two people who they operate on, and then there's always that one crazy person who just won't stop getting plastic surgery. And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, because my followers like it. Oh, because I get a lot of attention when I go out. And it's like, so you're not really doing it necessarily for you. I mean, obviously it's making you feel better, but that's not for you. You're doing it for everybody else. And I know people will be like, oh, well, why do you put on makeup? Why? Because I like to look good. You know what I mean? Like I legitimately am not doing that for anybody else. Sometimes I just like to wear makeup. But like you said, the why is important for us to really understand what it is and maybe what work we need to do on ourselves.
So where do y'all feel like as Black women, we've been heralded with starting the movement and also loving our curves. What new trends do you see in fat studies and body positivity and just talking about size in general? What do you see up ahead? What do you think is coming? Are we going to get to a place where size diversity is really valued? Where girls like me who grew up, where there are young boys who actually openly say I like fat women, because when I was fat, the men, it was always secretive dating. I know it was different for you, but it was always secret dating, and now it's not. And even that resonated with me too, even what you just said about people opening themselves up to you based on your size. What are your predictions for the future? In social media with, pop culture?
Yeah, well, I'll take it from a media perspective and say that I feel like we have definitely reached a point where we are including all sizes, right? Like, I just don't even think that our reader is okay with seeing the same type of woman issue in, issue out. You know what I mean? Like, we would get dragged, as they like to say. We would get dragged on social media if every issue we had this same looking woman. And I think right now it's to the point where it's not okay to do it. Whereas before, 20 years ago, totally, models, that was it. You put models in clothes and you put them in the magazine, and that's what everyone accepted. But now it's totally different. And I mean, all different shapes and sizes. You know, I think her name is Erica Hart, who had the double mastectomy. You know, we have her in the magazine. We need to be representative. And even though I work at a magazine that caters to Black women are not one-dimensional. You know, we have so many nuances, you know, and we have to cater to them all. So I definitely think from here, it's just going to continue to be more inclusive.
It's important to see the images.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think that I'm fascinated with the idea that in some ways we're like the first generation to embrace body positivity. Like your dad liking chocolate girls, my parents being very aware of like making me proud of my Blackness. That comes from generations. Like my grandfather like marched with Dr. King, right? So clearly there's like generations of people that have understood like the power of like shoring up Black people, right? And their Black children. And we're the first generation with social media to kind of mobilize around body positivity. So to me, I feel like the change isn't gonna be seen until like our kids like come out. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be our kids that show us like if we did it right or not. Like if we had this entire Instagram account based on social, you know, like change and like body positivity, and then we're still at home like, dang, these thighs though. Well, we didn't do the work, right? So I think like to be careful about the kids in our space. I'm like very passionate about that, right? And how we talk about ourselves, because they hear, you know, if you say a curse word, that's the word the baby picks up, but they didn't pick up any other word you said. Somehow they know that like emphasis towards like certain things that are negative. So I feel like we're leaning into that, but like our moms did the best they could, but they didn't have the knowledge that we have. So I think just like taking it all the way. And I think like holding brands accountable and holding media accountable, like it's a beautiful thing, but we have to hold ourselves accountable. Like the media didn't do this to us, we did it to ourselves. So to me, as long as we talk the talk and walk the walk, like by the time our kids get their Instagram accounts, hopefully it'll be a tiny bit better.
And it's funny you say that because it's slightly different, but I was watching Married to Medicine. I guess they have like this new, the LA one, and they were talking about Barbie dolls. And one, I don't know names, but somebody pretty much said that they felt as though the Barbie doll was like influencing how their child felt about themselves. And then somebody else was like, no, that is not the Barbie doll, you know? And so to your point, it's like, yeah, like that's on us. Like the onus is on us to make sure that our, you know, that our kids feel celebrated. And I know I always had like the really chocolate Cabbage Patch Kid, you know, stuff like that. Like, you know, so I do think it's important, but I guess I never looked at a Barbie doll as like, this is what I need to look like, you know?
And it's a reciprocal relationship. It's hard to tell. It's interesting that you're saying that we did it to ourselves. It's hard for me to tell which came first. Who did it first? You know, when you go to the enslavement of particularly Black people, it was white folks putting out those images. You know what I mean? Whatever, the Mammy, the Jezebel, what's the other one? Bunch, the Mammy, the Jezebel, and the Sapphire, right? You know, so putting out those images, and so which one of those came first, and then how do we buy into them or not buy into them, and then not like with childhood, not associating bad foods with size.
I think it's a lot of work.
Do you know it is? Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just a lot. So none of us are going to be perfect. Like I feel like we have to give ourselves grace. Like the fact that we're even having this conversation, this was not a conversation that I could look up when I was younger, right? Like it's isolating. So building community, building conversations around community, I think good job.
Well, good job to everybody, right? Thank you so much for coming to Young, Gifted, and Fat Talk Fat Sessions with me and CeCe Olisa and Tanya Christian. And we hope to see you next time.